Well, hello everybody. This is Casey Jaycox with the Quarterback Dadcast. We're in season 6, and as I mentioned, everybody, our guests just keep getting a little bit better. And our next gentleman, Clark Wilcox, he's gonna walk the walk and meet the demands of that intense intro that I just went crazy with. But he is the actually, before I introduce him, I got to give love to Kelly Shutrop. She's one of the coaches I've hired on my journey of entrepreneurship. So Kelly, thank you for introducing Clark Wilcox and I. That's without you, this podcast never happened. So shout out to you, sister. Anyway, he is the CEO, the founder of the Digital Recruiter, helping companies drive more business top of funnel through LinkedIn. He is the host of the Digital Recruiter podcast. He is a fractional CMO, but more importantly, he's a dad. And that's why we're going to have him on today to learn about Clark, the dad, and how he's working hard to become that ultimate quarterback or leader of his household. So without further ado, Mr. Wilcox, welcome to the Quarterback Dadcast.
Hey, Casey, thanks for having me, man. This is great to be here. I'm so excited for this conversation. Being a dad's the best thing ever. Being a business owner is pretty fun. It's all great. So it's all things I'm excited to talk about. So appreciate you having me, man.
You bet. Well, we always start out with gratitude. So tell me, what are you most grateful for as a dad today?
Ooh. I mean, I don't even know how to start the list, but I mean, really, my birthday was on Sunday, so a couple days ago, and
Happy
so
birthday.
I think it's always thank you. I think there's always like a time of reflection, and I think what I was grateful for is just to have. Just think about that day of just it was nice weather. I got my almost 2-year-old. I have a son that's going to be 2 years old next month. We have a 2-month-old as of this week. So the 2 under 2 lifestyle and having a house, having a wonderful wife that's been crazy supportive of me and all in with our kids and just the reward of just raising kids and just like hanging out, especially with my 2-year-old and I, that personality coming to life and just like the moments, just like the being present. I'm grateful that I'm as present as I can be. I'm flawed and make mistakes all the time, but I think I'm grateful for just all like the blessings and just appreciating what a special time in life this is. Hasn't been like the easiest of journeys, as you know, most guests I'm sure you've had and listeners, right? We all have trials. But I just think I'm so grateful for the blessings I have and the problems I have too at the same time, because these are problems I prayed about having 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I don't take a minute of it for granted. Just a love that I have in my day to day and my business. I just have some of the best clients ever, and I just every day is fulfilling, man. And like I don't feel like there's a wasted moment. So I'm really grateful for that.
Love it. That's well said, dude. What I'm grateful for is I haven't talked about this in a while, but I'm grateful for time because I have control over time. And we all, both you and I and everybody listening and at home and wherever you're at, we get 1,440 minutes each day. No one gets more, no one gets less. And so I'm grateful for a very present mindset that days when I'm not my best, I might not use my time as efficient. That's okay. But I'm not going to let 2 bad days go in a row. And so, like, perfect example today, I woke up earlier because I have a full day of podcast recordings and sales leadership work I'm doing with companies. And I had a gap between I had a 30-minute gap. And so I said, my dog who's behind me, I said, hey, we're going to go. And I literally took her for a 14-minute, you know what? I can't say the word because she'll freak out. The WALK.
Yeah.
And so I was like 7 minutes out, 7 minutes back. Now, was that any form of good exercise? No, but better than doing nothing. And so I have another gap this afternoon, then I'll take her for a longer one. But it was just I was just grateful that I worked out earlier, did some gratitude work, had a coaching call, and just being outside for 14 minutes got me in an even better mindset, and I already woke up ready to go and jacked up, but it got me even in a better mindset. So I'm grateful for that because I had control over that. And I made the right decision today to just maximize the time I get.
I love it. I did the same exact thing. I think the same time frame on a walk with my golden retriever right before this recording. So it's crazy how that syncs up and parallels. Couldn't agree more.
So for those watching on YouTube, that's Harley.
What's up, Harley?
For those at home in the car, you can't see it, but she's an Irish setter golden retriever, 50-50 mix. Oh, they're the best. We just lost Stella about a month and a half ago, her stepmom. And so, but we're getting her a puppy in September. So she's going to be now. She went from baby to now she's going to be the big girl on campus,
Yeah.
which will be
So
fun.
very
So,
nice. Very nice.
well, bring me inside the Wilcox huddle. Talk to me
Yeah.
about how you and your wife met, and then talk about each wonderful child you have.
Yeah. We met October 2020. So interesting time, right? The COVID, the first year of COVID era. I had moved to Ohio officially October 2019. So I've been there about a year. I had kind of found my faith in March of 2019. And then when I was in LA, I moved to Ohio through a friend. Kind of was hitting reset for a year, really diving into my Bible and sermons and going to church. I didn't go on one date or anything else. I was like really honed in on that. And about a year in, I was like, all right, like I kind of feel like see what's out there, but everything was like closed or shut down. No one was going out anywhere. So I was like, what do I do? So download an app called Hinge, and I had a few matches, few conversations, but she's just the one that stood out. And I think my tagline, because you can have a few different ones on there, the one that she liked or commented on was "God first, karaoke second." Um, and so that was the tagline. So we kind of hit it off from that, and both people that had kind of recently found our faith, and but also like to have a good time and some karaoke. I actually ended up getting it inscribed on my suit that I had to for my wedding. So it's still upstairs on there. It says "God first, karaoke second" on there, embroidered on there, which is pretty cool. So we met and we got basically a dinner and drinks. It was the last warm day of 2020. It was 80 degrees. We met up around 6 o'clock, and we ended up talking for like 3-4 hours and just talking about life and work and challenges. And she didn't know her father growing up, but she had been really working through a lot of that stuff. For me, it was my parents both died when I was 5 years old, within 10 days of each other. So she kind of looked at me when she told her story. It was like, I think she usually gets judged and all that stuff, right? And I looked at her, I was like, trust me, I can one up you on craziness and trauma. And I think what really linked us together was not trauma bonding, but it was actually the fact that we were facing it and working on dealing with it, and for her forgiving her father and letting go of all that stuff. And for me, all the stuff that came with kind of my childhood, we were both like, stuff happened. How do we process it, deal with it, so we can find the right person, the right spouse, and build a family together and work through overcoming kind of our challenges together? And that was really the foundation of how we met. And from the very beginning, it was just it was just very intentional. Like day 3 or 4, I was like, I'm not dating to date. I'm dating to marry, and this is what I believe in, and everything else. I'm trying to do things the biblical way. And she was like, I'm all in. Like, I'm like, all right. So we just had a great year. About a year in, it was Thanksgiving weekend. We're hanging out one morning. I'm like, what are we waiting for? Why don't we just start planning a wedding? So like, I didn't have a ring. We just started touring venues and everything else, but we were picking stuff out. We went ring shopping together. I was able to kind of surprise her somehow, even though she knew it was coming. I had the ring guy email her and be like, oh, there's a delay in the shipment. And then I went, picked it up, and then surprised her at the rooftop in Columbus. We got married a year and a half after we met. We had our son a year after that. That was May 2023. And then our newest one a couple months ago. So that's kind of the Cliff Notes version. I'll take a breather there.
So you have son and two sons, or son
Two
and daughter?
sons.
Two
Yeah, we
sons.
have
Okay.
two sons.
Okay. And what are their names?
We have Wyatt and we have Jet
Okay.
is the newborn.
Very cool. Jet sounds like he's already fast.
He's fast to cry. We were ready to figure out some. He's been a little colicky. I mean, he's adorable when it's not fun when they cry, but really figuring out is it diet stuff, is it heavy metal, stuff like what's going on there, because he's just been agitated. So Maddie's been incredible, working just so hard, to different specialists and doctor and all that, just to try to figure out, hey, what are some ways that she can provide him some relief. And some of that stuff's really gotten a lot better the last few days. But I'm just lucky to have married someone that is just all about doing whatever she can for our boys, from just a health, and she was a former third grade teacher and everything else. So she kind of has that ability too. So it really is amazing. So we're kind of in it and just trying to make sure he can get the rest and the support that he needs, because it's not fun when they're crying all the time. It can be part of it, but you always want to make sure that they're good.
Now, does she stay home with the kids?
She's at home. She helps me. I got her into recruiting about a year and a half ago because I also own an agency, co-own an agency, a recruiting agency, and she was very successful last year. And then, as now that we have two, it's a lot harder for talk to candidates on the phone daily and everything else. So she kind of shifted over to helping a lot with the operations on my coaching and training business and kind of our marketing work that we do with clients. So she's been instrumental this year in just helping with a lot of back system operations and everything else. So it's great. So she helps me for a few hours a day. We have our niece and my mother-in-law and our nephew are very actively involved. So we have family help as well. So it's kind of like it takes a village type of effort over here that we have going on. So it's pretty cool.
Very cool. Well, you dropped the big one on us. You lost
Yeah.
both parents at age 5. I can't even imagine that. The only other person I've met that lost both parents was a guy named Orson Sweat Martin, who I researched and I wrote my book. And he lost both parents at the age of, he got one at I think 7 and one at 5. So then he ended up, guy had more adversity, but he's one of the most positive. If you've not researched him, research him.
I will.
Great dude.
Orson was last name?
Orson Sweat Martin, Marden. He actually ended up founding something called Success Magazine, which is still around to this day. I think they even have a LinkedIn page. But yeah, he is just a guy that really kind of, I'm glad his life story came across me when I was writing the book 5-6 years ago. So, for what you feel comfortable sharing, talk about what you remember about mom and dad growing up, and then maybe what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm always open on sharing. So my parents met. My dad grew up in Algeria. He was the oldest of 9 kids, which I didn't find out until I was like 30, 31, which is interesting. That's a whole interesting other story. So, but he grew up in Algeria and immigrated to France in the 80s. My mom grew up north of Boston in the town that I eventually ended up growing up in, spending most of my childhood in. And she had traveled to France, and she was kind of writing and kind of, I think, working odd jobs here and there, but mostly just kind of lived there. So they met on a park bench in a town called Annecy, France. Beautiful, beautiful lake town up against the Alps. In kind of in eastern France, right next to Geneva, very close to Geneva. So I was actually born outside of Geneva, but on the French side, Saint Julien Genevois is the name of the city I was born in. But it was a beautiful town, and they were together. They officially got married when I was 4. I don't know how long they were together before they had me. Um, but just obviously two very different cultures where they were from, and this is late 80s, early 90s, so no cell phones or internet or anything else like that. So a little bit isolated, right, from their families. My mom was developing some mental health issues, schizophrenia, and that kind of got progressively worse through the year. My dad worked a graveyard shift, so that was a tough schedule. So I'd have he'd drop me off at a nanny at night, and I would sleep. She would take care of me, and he'd come pick me up in the morning. So I do remember that. I remember him carrying me in, all that stuff. I'd be asleep on his shoulders. So I remember, our car breaking down and having to walk to go get gas at the gas station, like little things like that. And being at the playground with my mom, and have a lot of pictures from that. I don't remember their voices, but there's a lot of pictures and all that stuff from that era. So I always had those. And unfortunately, what happened is, when I was January 1993, my dad went into hospital with some health issues, concerns, and I was always told that he ended up having a heart attack, and I'm not sure if it was my adopted dad wasn't sure if it was pneumonia or what, but I'm pretty sure it was a heart attack. About age 41. Was a smoker, working graveyard shift. My mom's health was getting progressively worse, so there was a lot going on, a lot of stressors, and with the mental health issues. So it's they got along great most of the time. I think a couple times, I saw it's not the best interactions at times, but overall, my memories were always like very positive and healthy. And but unfortunately, my mom came in, woke me up one night, and told me my dad had passed away. And so I do, I've always remembered that moment and pretty ingrained. Again, I can't remember the words that she said, but I can remember her. I can remember her face and her kind of mouthing the words. And again, in French, right? I spoke only French at that time. She taught me a little bit of English, so that happened. And she had our close family friends came and took me in, and as she, my mom could kind of sort through everything. Uh, but then unfortunately, the government, I think it was my dad's family, they got wind of some of her issues she was having. And basically 10 days later, my uncle on my dad's side came and visited and told me that my mom had passed away. And so what happened is that she had, taken her life, and they had found a letter from the government that was saying that they were going to take me from her. It just didn't have the support around everything else, and I think that was just kind of the last straw, right? In a tough state, tough head state, and had lost her husband and was about to lose her son, and that was it. So they kind of found the letter on the table, and so yeah, that was 10 days apart, and yeah, and then it was just kind of a whole process in France. So it took about 3 months for them to figure out: am I going to go to Algeria? Am I going to go to Boston? In France, they give guardianship to the grandparents. So there was a battle. There was not necessarily my Algerian side of the family is 99% amazing. I've met some of them in future years, a lot later on in life, but I had one uncle that I think really wanted to bring me back to Algeria, and his girlfriend at the time kind of stopped that from happening, shall we say, illegally. And so that was kind of a whole thing I learned about later. Eventually, the courts decided to give guardianship to my mom's mom, and so she officially was one that traveled with me, took me in, but I lived with my mom's older brother, and his wife. So he had this is his second wife. He had been married, had my older sister. Got remarried and had two kids after they took me in, my younger brother and sister. And so it's kind of convoluted and complicated, but basically my aunt and uncle took me in on my mom's side. And so I grew up with that side of the family. My grandmother, it was her oldest child, it was that had passed away, my mom. My adopted dad was her stepson, technically. So we just had a really close bond. I learned English in about 4 months and forgot all my French. Like, I barely speak French nowadays, still to this day. And my dad was just like, my adopted dad was just like, you just, it was no drugs, no therapy, and everything else. It was like, we're just going to shower this kid with love and a good time. And I had neighborhood friends immediately, like, they introduced me to, and I would go to all the, my grandmother was trying to figure out like what to do with me, like, how do I hang out? And he was like, just take him to sports games. Like, so she got me Red Sox tickets for my 7th birthday. And I had moved to backstart. I had moved here the day before my 6th birthday. So I moved to the States 32 years ago this week. And yeah, it was about a year to kind of figure out. They got me a Sega right away. I had Nintendo in France. They got me a Sega, so I, had fun and made friends and learned English. And then a year in, she like took me to a Red Sox game, and I was hooked. Like, I went to Red Sox game, Bruins and Celtics all in the same month, and I was like, this is what I love doing. Like, I love sports. And so her and I went to hundreds of games together growing up, from Revolut soccer to football to Red Sox and all that. And that was like our bonding. And she was the one that kind of took me on vacations and everything. So she was,
This is
really
grandma.
my grandma. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that was kind of like and I could take a breather if that's stuff you want to ask me, but she was like, that was it. Like, her and my adopted dad and so many other family members, but those were the two relationships that were really my saving grace growing up. And they were, whether, and not really by official title, but kind of my therapist. We were all grieving, right, in our own way,
sure.
uh, but just through spending time together and being present and just talking about stuff, not always serious stuff, but just kind of having fun and helping me figure out what my interests were and everything else and skills. It was great. So, like, I had some crazy stuff happen, but like, people stepped in for me and took me in. Like, it's like I really have no complaints because a crazy thing happened, but again, God works in mysterious ways, and He put me in the right place where I needed to be. And that doesn't mean it was all roses, far from it. but I got put into a great environment, and despite being, having gone through a crazy situation.
Are grandma and stepdad still with us?
They both passed away. So my grandmother passed away in August 2015, and my dad passed away July 2020. So in the craziness of the COVID and all that stuff, he had a lot of health issues. He got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2000. So he ended up going through radiation and had like COPD for about 20 years. So about 15% lung capacity for 20 years, which is pretty nuts. Um, so there was always in and out of the hospital, but wanted to keep that stuff like very private. But unfortunately, with how some of the hospital medical stuff was run around that time, especially in a state like Massachusetts, it was a little sketchy on kind of how things went downhill because he's supposed to be discharged the next day, and I was back there visiting to kind of take care of him that summer a little bit, and it was unfortunate, and I think kind of just took a turn pretty quick that week, and but it was kind of one of those grown up moments. Unfortunately, I had, gone through it when I was little, but it was definitely different at this stage. But it was one of those things that he was no longer in pain and at peace, and as much as I miss him, my sibling, we miss him, a ton. But it was one of those like to see him just like relax and not fighting, all that stuff, the breathing and everything. And he's very prideful. He wouldn't want anyone to take care of him in a certain situation for a long time. And you know what? Like even those things kind of can happen for reason in their due time. And I think going through that, I met my wife 3 months later, and it was just one of those like kind of grown up moments and kind of the passing of the baton. It's like, all right, like now I'm ready to kind of like really build my own family and continue to carry and build upon the legacy that my dad kind of handed off to me.
Wow. It's powerful stuff, dude. I mean, we don't have, I wish I could interview you for 4 hours because I got questions for days, but is it ironic or serendipitous that the Mariners, my beloved Seattle Mariners, are taking on the Red Sox today?
Are they really? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In Beantown.
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
I've actually been to Fenway once and saw the Mariners play Fenway. It
That's
was
so
awesome.
cool.
My son was
What?
like 7 years old at the time, and I told him, I'm like, hey, bro, like, slow your roll a little bit. Like, these Boston fans can be a little bit intense. We're not going to get too crazy. We put up 7 runs in the first, and my 7-year-old son is just losing his mind. Thankfully, the
Yeah.
Boston fans were nice to us, and like, I'm like, we're trying to calm him down. He's like, oh, this is actually great. And then it was like, we ended up winning an extra innings, like 12-10, like a kickball game.
Yeah,
So
that's funny. Yeah, I mean, like it's a 7-year-old kid. I mean, I think they're all right. When you get to that level, it is funny you mentioned it's a great story. It makes me think of a time like 97, 98, like Red Sox Yankees Memorial Day weekend. I mean, just absolute banana. I mean, ticket prices were like a tenth of what they are now, so we could get a bunch of tickets for a couple $100 for the year. Now it's like you get 2 tickets for a game for that price. But anyways, a different era. But they didn't even have the monster seats yet at that time. But we would park on Lansdowne Street behind the monster. So it'd be the garage you see on Sunday Night Baseball that like the cars get hit by a home run or whatever. Like that's where we would park. And it was one day we had like the Bruins playoff game on, right? Like maybe it wasn't Memorial Day, it was like April, early May. Bruins playoff, like turned up, playing I think like the Capitals. But we got this Yankee fan, this Red Sox fan. They got mullets and tank tops, and they're just like beating each other up behind our car. So like, well, we're not moving. I was like 9. My grandmother was my grandmother, so like we're just hanging out, listening to the Bruins game, playoff games. These drunk meatheads are beating each other up behind us. So I was like, it's just kind of par of the course, in '90s in Fenway.
oh, that's hilarious. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. Okay, so for what you for everything you've been through, I want you to think about like what are the core like 3 values that everybody that helped the village that raised you, like
Mhm.
what would be the 3 values that were like that really have been staples for your life as you reflect that you believe that you and your wife will be values that you really want to teach your boys.
Yeah, guys, great question. Um, One of the things that always stuck out with my dad, I think, just his positivity and his optimism. He was never gonna let me be a victim, but he didn't do it by like telling me. He just did it through action. If that makes sense. Like there was no, we didn't. we acknowledge like crazy stuff happened, and crazy stuff happened to him in his life. He lost both his parents in his early 20s. I mean, he lost his dad the same year he had his first daughter. Like, but he never dwelled on that stuff. I know it affected him, and we talked about it more later in his life, but he just, the show kept going with a smile on his face, and just to listen, to talk to people and ask them questions, whether you knew them and strangers. He was always asking about other people and their day and their favorite show and their favorite sports, and like just relentless like optimism and just having a good time. And that's like just the first thing I think of with my dad. It's just like stuff. There's enough bad stuff, but like have a good time, have fun with life. Like we get one shot at this. Um, that was huge. That had a huge impact. I know it did on just my development. And yeah, there was tough times. And yeah, I struggled. I was angry and cried and all that stuff and wondering why stuff happened to me and all growing up, normal stuff. But like that always, I just always had a good time with things, man. And it's like the more and it make me think about this more, like, God, it's a big part of it day to day. I can't stand being around negative Nancy's. Like it drives me nuts.
Yeah, me too.
Uh, and I just, there's challenges. I face them. I get it. We all have them. But man, life can be great. And you will miss the moments if you don't have that attitude. Um, that was the first one, I think, with him. My grandmother also just loved learning about people, but was just full of just love and generosity. I think just being generous with your time, um, with what you have, right? If God's given you abundance, especially financially, just don't hoard it yourself. Like my grandmother would always spend money on experiences with her grandkids and her kids, because I think when she was a mom, I think I know she had a lot of regrets about how that happened. And my grandfather and had his own issues, also took his life and everything, when with 5 kids that were ages uh 9 to 16. So that was crazy for my grandmother. So it was just like survive at that rate. So she really got a second chance at all of it as being a grandparent. And she just, whatever she could to spend time with her grandkids and all that. It was experiences, do things with the people that you love and use it as a vehicle to get to know them better and to show them that you're present. And my grandmother was beloved by her grandkids because she spent time getting to know every single one of us and doing things that we wanted to do. She wanted to know what made us happy and what things were fun, and she wanted to be the one to do those things with us. And she did that with every single one of her grandkids. And I think she had, when before she passed, there was 9, 10 of us, and I think every single one of them would have felt like, yeah, she knows me individually. God, there's a power of having a great grandparent is incredible. She took obviously a lot with me just because my mom wasn't around, biological mom. So we spent probably more time than the other grandkids, and I was the oldest one of her biological grandkids. But man, just that piece of it, experiences like that is how I, even to this day, I kind of show my love for people. I think it's like, let's just go do something, right? Let's go to an event. Let's spend time. And in that, I can interact and converse with you. I definitely get that from her. It doesn't always have to be going and spending money. It can be going to a park with my son, right? Just something like that. So that's two. It's a long-winded two. But if I say positivity and optimism, if I say generosity, I just say, give me gratitude. I don't know if love. I mean, like love's got to be in there, right?
I
But
heard
just, yeah.
curiosity.
What's that?
I heard curiosity too without you saying it.
Yeah, being curious about people. I think that's why I got into recruiting, is because of some of the stuff that they taught me. I just am curious about the world and people and how they interact. And I think just naturally as an orphan, I kind of had to look around for other examples just to see how do people operate, because I kind of lost my structure pretty quickly. So I was always just curious about how people attack the problems in the world and learn stuff, right? Because obviously some things probably kind of fell through the cracks, as they do for all of us. But just being curious, it's just like definitely a trait that you get to know so much about the world and people when you're that way.
The superpower. Most
Yeah.
people. That's why I'm obsessed with curiosity. It just is a superpower, man. It solves majority of the problems in life, and it gets us out of like trying to convince and tell, which allows our ego to get up. Now, when we aren't curious, then I think it leads to lack of vulnerability, lack of humility, and then fear sneaks into the culture. And when fear is
Absolutely.
there, look out. And
I
people are
love
not the best.
I love that you picked that up because it reminds me. You're spot on. I'm glad you picked up that word because my dad. I always ask my dad, like, Dad, how do you know so much? Like, my dad was brilliant and so smart, but like just knew something about everything. I was like, how in the world? It was most of it is pre-internet era. I'm like, how in the world? He's like, I read the newspaper every day. That's all I do. I just read the newspaper every day, and because he was always learning and always curious, and then he would research, and he had stacks of VCRs and DVDs and books everywhere, and he was just like always learning, like a constant lifelong learner.
Hmm.
Yeah,
What did they do for their jobs?
it's interesting. My grandmother was a massage therapist. And then my dad kind of had a bunch of different things. He owned a bunch of radio stations in the 90s. And then when he got sick, he had to sell them. He just couldn't maintain all that anymore. And then he kind of had some, odd jobs here and there. He, just through kind of what he took, it was didn't have to work a ton, we'll put it that way, throughout his life. And so he had different kind of things going on. He bought a couple tall ships and then we're trying to turn that into business, but then always kind of wanted to like make it a charity. Right. When he's like, because he didn't necessarily have to make income from it. So now eventually he had to because there were some tough decisions and the recession hurt a little bit and everything else in '08. But he used it to try to like, okay, get the special needs kids and the charities and all that, like give them tickets and give them experience, right, on a boat in a tall ship in Boston Harbor. They go out and fire off fake cannons and all that. So he kind of ran that as a business, but kind of a little bit, I don't know how many tickets were actually sold. So, and that was after he had got sick. So I think he was like, new lease on life. I'm not going to stress myself out too much, and have fun with this and try to give back a little bit more. And then he would kind of do, odd jobs here and there in the last like 10 years. But I think he kind of was able to live out a little bit of his retirement a little bit earlier. So he was just kind of like just tinkering things with here and online projects and all that good stuff.
Hmm. How so as you reflect and kind of talk through about these things I'm asking you, which I don't know if how often you've thought about some of this stuff, but how close are you to some of your cousins?
It's a great question. Like, I mean, cousins, like the ones that turned into my siblings, or just
Yep.
cousins in general? Yeah,
Sorry.
my
Yeah.
cousins, yeah, that are it's a good distinction, and you wouldn't know. But yeah, they're all my brothers and sisters now, and we're close. Now we're not close geographically. My sister's in New Jersey. I got one in England, and I got a brother in Belgium. So we're all over the place. So that's the hardest part. But I am very close. I mean, especially growing up, my brother was born 6 months after I got here. My sister a couple years after. So there's an age difference where I'm 11 years apart from the oldest, 6 years, and then 8 years. So there's a
Mm,
wide gap. So different. It's almost like different generations at times, right?
right.
So we have some natural difference there. But I mean, I would say the way we handled the biggest testament to how close we are is the way we handled my dad's passing and being there for each other and um, because I wasn't officially adopted, right? There's some stuff with like the will and everything else, and that stuff can get messy. And there was zero mess with any four of us, and that is almost like the rarest thing. I've talked to a lot of people about that stuff, everything else, and
Oh yeah.
that's a testament of they had my back. It wasn't even a question of, Clark's like it's the four of us and everything else, and we just, I would say, always have our back and each other's back and difference in opinions and all that. Yeah, of course, right, brothers and sisters. But I don't for a question doubt, their love for me, and I don't think they question my love for them. And same thing, taking the same traits and just being there for each other and loving each other through disagreements and everything else, and just having each other's back. We're really close. It's a special bond because it's part blood, but part forged and a lot choice. And there is something about being related and kind of the blood family, but and we are technically cousins, but your relationships and everything else are a choice on how deep of a level you want to get into it with them. And that's one of the things that I've been blessed to learn through going the route I have in my life is everything's a choice, and relationship is showing how you choose to show up and everything else. And I appreciate and love them for the fact that they chose me to accept me as their brother. And there was no resentment on splitting attention and all that, and on my end or their end. Uh, and I think I'm definitely one of the things that I'm really proud of.
We get 1,440 minutes a day. No one gets more, no one gets less. Um, do you know? Sorry, close the door. Sorry, I'm gonna have to edit that out. My wife's like, read the defense. I love you. Um, uh, so I guess my question is everything that you went through, and how soon do you think you'll share this information with your boys?
I mean, whenever is appropriate. I have no, I don't know what age that looks like, to be honest. I have nothing to hold back, and I think if it's relevant and important to teach a lesson, or I'm sure you could tell me, kids get pretty curious pretty early, and then you have to understand, I guess, how to kind of, you know, work in that conversation. I don't know. I'll ask you, like, what do you think is an age that kids like that typically respond and kind of can understand some of that information?
My without ever going through that, and I'm definitely
Yeah,
not a trained therapist, but
yeah,
my gut says um, you'll know in your gut.
yeah.
You obviously with a faith background, I would think your heart's going to speak to you. The other thing I'd say I bet it's one of those things you're going to tell more than once. It's going to be a story, a multiple story where you'll kind of sprinkle in pieces of it, and then it might be too much for them. And then I think there'll be times where, well, I'm a big believer of like when in telling stories, it's always good to ask a question if I use this framework in like my sales and leadership coaching business world. It's like if I'm going to teach somebody something, I always say, tell me, would it be helpful if I shared a story about when I went through that challenge?
Yeah,
They're a
it's a
lot
great way to
more
put it. Yeah.
they're more interested to hear it versus me just saying, well, here's what you got to do. They're like, oh, great, Mr. Freaking Know It All. He's going to just tell me, we want it to be their idea. We want it to be like, just like when we're teaching our kids. There's a great book I read through actually this podcast journey. It's written by a guy named, the author Swen Nader. That book's called "You Have Not Taught Until They Have Learned."
Ooh, I'm writing it down. You
It's
hear
a
me
great
type.
book. You have not taught until you have not taught until they have learned. And Swen Nader played for a basketball coach. People might have heard of a guy named John Wooden.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, not a bad career.
decent,
Um,
decent coach.
yeah, not a bad run. So he and like that teaching is so powerful for I think us as parents and business leaders and everybody. But I think what back to the question I asked you, I think it's um, I think just when you lead with again, I think the superpowers of life, vulnerability, humility, curiosity, we're being our best. We're showing up our best. When I might when the first time you communicate it, it might not be perfect, but you're being your best. And I think when we think about time, that's all we can ask for is be my best. But we all have the one common thing in common: we're all flawed. We all have issues. We're all not perfect. But I think we can reset each day to like, shit, that was not my best, but I'm going to be better. And those are the stories I try to teach my kids about like. And actually, when you were telling your story about your dad, about positivity and optimism, like one of my good friends' wife, she says, "Man, if you were like had a tribal name, like back in like and I joked her I was 1/16 Cherokee Indian, but she said if you were a tribal, your tribal name would be he who over invites. Like I love people, I love bringing people together, I love being curious, I love optimism. I hate being around negative people. It's a choice. So I like when your dad, I was like, I hope my kids describe me like you describe your dad.
Well, if you over invite, they definitely will, because sometimes it's a roll of the eyes when we think back to the stories, and you're a teenager and he's talking to the checkout girl, like, oh, I'm a dad, like one of those, like 12 years old and everything else. But I look back and I absolutely love it. Like I remember it fondly, and I am 100% in that dad mode and going to be doing the same exact things to my boys and embarrassing the crap out of them, and I can't wait. And I love. Oh, I can wait because I love the stage that they're at now. We don't feel it, but it'll be fun when we get there. And it was the same thing, just dinner parties. Every food would be on the table. Everything, snacks would be thrown. My friends would come over. He'd throw like Milano cookies at us. Okay, the diet was not great, and all that. But when your kids are like, this is sweet, and it's just like making sure we're having a good time, that we're well fed, that we're having fun, that he's asking about us. And yeah, they will remember you that way because it's fun, and people remember people that make them feel heard and listened to and special. And I took it.
I am.
Yeah, and I took it for granted growing up. It was great, but man, I look back now at our culture and landscape and how even more rigid everything out, not as free flowing as it was kind of growing up in the '90s. And it's special to people when you can foster those environments where people are having fun and feel heard and respected and just having a good time. Um, I didn't realize how much work it takes to really do that and be good at that. I just kind of took it for granted. So yeah, it's good to have. We need people like you and my dad out there doing stuff like that because that's what builds community, and that's really it.
I appreciate you saying that, and I think. Well, I want to be conscious of timer because I think I could talk to you forever here, brother. This has been a fun conversation.
Yeah.
You mentioned faith as a part of your life. If you can, talk about that journey and how has it positively impacted you.
Yeah, it's been everything. I mean, it's been the best thing that's happened in my life, uh, and it's something I desperately try to hold on to and want to be. Well, I'm not worthy of it, but I'm so grateful that my eyes were opened. It was. Um, I grew up going to church, Episcopal church, confirmed when I was 14. I stopped going right after I was confirmed. I just never really bought in at that age, that level. Um, it was good for some of the community stuff, but very traditional. My dad was called a Catholic light Episcopalian. It's pretty funny looking back on it. I think there's a lot of points there, but um, it just didn't really. It felt surface level to me. So I never really resonated. And I grew up into 2000s, and I was like, I'm just gonna kind of do my own thing. My dad never pushed it on us. He's like, you go until you confirmed, and it's your choice. Okay, cool. And so I didn't go, and he was telling me in my 20s. He's like, Clark, like you're gonna come back around. You just wait. Like he just knew. He saw it in me. My journey. I was like, yeah, whatever, Dad. And I don't know if I believe any of this stuff. And I was into sports and not really caring. And there's things that evolved in my 20s, and I just kept having these like epiphanies of like 2015. I was like, what am I like doing? I'm 28. I'm at Aerotech. I feel like I'm kind of going through the motions in life. And it's just something was gnawing at me that I wasn't really, that there was some like a lot of like potential left on it. My dad was like, you have a ton of potential. And at some point, I'm like, well, when am I going to realize this potential? And that was kind of the same year. That was the same year my grandmother ended up passing away, and I spoke at a funeral. And I remember just being like, I might not be able to replicate the exact relationship I had with her, but I can carry those traits of those and kind of put those out more into the world. And I think that just like I always remember that because then I said it and I had to live it. And I just started living it. I just started doing more like self discovery and self improvement books, and then reading about entrepreneurship, and then reading about the world more and like how things just operate. And a lot of some of the things that I realized I had a lot of disillusionment about how I was raised, especially like culturally and everything else. And that was 2016 and then 17, and I got into some I figured out like working out a little bit more, and I got in some relationships that weren't great and kind of learned about those, and actually kind of hired a dating coach back then that like really was transformational and like just showing me my blind spots. Like I always respond well to coaching, and I was like sounded crazy at the time. Like I have a dating coach, like you're like 30. Like what do you need one for? I was like, I just know I'm missing. I have blind spots here. Like what are they? And he woke me up to a bunch of stuff. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, and kind of the masculine and the feminine and all that stuff. And I started watching some podcast people and all that, listening a little bit more about Christianity. And I was like, this is interesting. And then 2019, I just realized like, I think the resurrection actually happened. Like, I just learned a little bit more about it. I'm like, huh. And like there's a balance of faith and there's a balance of historical knowledge. And it's like, wow, there's more sources that Jesus lived at that time than the Roman emperor at that time. I'm like, well, that's interesting. Right. So like I got to learn some facts about it all. I'm like, this really happened. Like I believe. And so I did. And then I started opening up the Bible. I read Ecclesiastes. This was March 2019. And it was hard to like actually open and start reading, but I related to that one. And it took me about 6 months to find a church, but I was like, you know what? I believe. I don't really know what to do from here, but like I believe. Like, and that was the first step. And 3 weeks later, um, I was in a rough time in my life. I left Aerotech, the recruiting company. I was part of partying and investing and stuff for a year and a half in LA. And 3 weeks later, I visited my friend in Columbus, Ohio. This is about a month after I decided, like, I believe I'm a Christian. I don't know what church I'm going to, but I believe all this. I looked at my bank account, and from poor investments and trusting the wrong business partner, realized I was broke after having a healthy six figures in the bank. Lost everything. Completely my own fault, my own doing. No one else, like everything. I just was being a degenerate and just bad decisions and not necessarily, I would say, like malicious, like, no malicious intent, but it's just dumb. And I had no purpose. I wasn't doing anything productive, and I got everything was just like gone. I was like stuck with high rent and a car payment and everything else. So it took me about 4 months to get out of there. And my friend, had a place for me to stay. He bought my plane ticket to get out here and everything else. And we had met through like a year before, and he was really into Christianity. So him and I were talking about some of this stuff. I didn't know what church he went to, but he like always had the answers to stuff. And I'm like, so I come out here. He takes me down to Atlanta to visit his friend. I come out to Columbus. I moved from LA to Columbus. We go down to Atlanta within a month and go to some church friends he's known for a while that he grew up with and moved down to Atlanta. We go to a service, and there's two sermons, there's split sermons. No one's dressed up in robe or anything, but everyone's reading, has their own Bible, and they're preaching from the Bible. I was like, I have never seen this in my life. Like, I just never grew up I never knew the Bible growing up, going to church. And they were like reading and referencing passages and everything else. I'm like, well, this is interesting. And we talked about the resurrection and everything else. And, it was a Sabbath going to church. And we went to church on a Saturday. And I was like, what is going on here? And so, but I just kept coming back. I was hooked. I was like, I love that you guys read from the source and preach from the source. I've never seen that before. Because I tested out some other congregations. And so I started going to that called United Church of God. And we keep the holy days in Leviticus 23. And that just made sense to me. And I listened to hundreds of hours of sermons and just learned on all that stuff and just tried to, catch up the best I could and live on that. And it changed my life. I got out here. I got a job at $12 an hour, and I had a smile on my face every day just to try to pick myself up, right? Doing remodeling work. I was terrible at it, but they still paid me. They were super nice guys and helped me out. And I got a job at 15 an hour. And then my friend Tristan reintroduced me to someone in the LinkedIn world, the business development world. That's how I got into learn about LinkedIn. And then I bumped up my pay from there and used my old skills from my Aerotech days. And I just kind of rebuilt with just a ton of gratitude and appreciation. And I moved out here 4 months before COVID happened, and we rented like 19 acres. And my buddy was like, you got to see money hit the account again. So I worked a little bit and studying my sermons and going on walks. And that was just a very healing time for me. And then I was able to process dealing with my dad's stuff, and the church community was great. And then when he passed, I really had my faith to lean on. And I really believed that I would see him again. And I feel very at peace with all that, with all my relatives that have passed, and knowing that everyone's going to get a chance to repent, whether in this life or the next. Just that kind of hope was invaluable to me, and I'd rather live in, again, positivity. I'd rather have faith and lean into that there's an all-powerful God that has a plan for us. And why not? To me, that's a more fun way to live. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but if I'm right, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, it's I think believe it's the word behind me. It's people can see it. There you go.
Yeah.
It's obviously a Ted Lasso theme. I actually got that sign at a Mariner game with my son years ago.
Yeah.
And it's also, it's not just for me a spiritual thing, but it's more about just like, you got to believe in yourself. And it's not being, closed-minded to the belief, but it's just like belief of a confidence and a belief of like, hey, we're here for something. For me, it just kind of sets my mindset for the right day. But, I don't think anybody knows the truth, to be honest with you, man. I don't want to get too off track here. Like we won't know until we go to where we're going to go. But there's a lot of proof of what people have learned and what people do share. I'm a big spirituality guy. I don't go to church right now. But I look at a scripture every morning. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. But like gratitude, I do every morning. And one of the very first lines, it almost makes me smile every time I do it. So I'm like, God, thanks for waking me up today. Just starting with that for me is like, it makes me like, I'm here. I can do something today. And it gives me energy.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I could be talking forever, so I'm going to try to bring us home here. So if you were to think about everything we've talked about, from sharing your journey, um, to the lessons you've learned, to the life experience you've been through, to your faith journey. Like, think about what would be like 2 or 3 core values that are going to be most important to you and your wife as you raise your boys. Tell me what comes.
Humility and grace are the first two words that came to my mind. You have to have grace. I mean, you've been married longer than I have, much longer. I'm sure you would, but just in our almost 3 years, you're gonna screw up. You're gonna do things, and just mm, I'm not used to having. And I told her this the other day. I'm like, just the way she's had my back the first couple of years. No one I've dated has had my back to that level ever. And then we obviously, no, I haven't married anyone else, but like that's been really cool. And just the grace she's had for my mistakes and I have it for hers. Has been incredible, and I think just humility that I don't know it all, and yeah, I feel blessed. My eyes, are open, by God, and I go to I go to church as much as I can. It's hard with 202, right? But I'm holding on to it, but also just the humility of if I believe, I believe, and if this is great, this is right, this is great, and I think I could back up some of that, but I'm also the humility of like I'm not here to convince and yell at people that they're wrong or to be believers and all that. Like, I just trust in God's plan, and I try to do the best I can to listen to what that looks like and some of the signs and the signals. One of the biggest ones has just been, like humility, grace, forgiveness. Those are all been huge for me, and being able to let go and not have resentment. First with forgiving my parents, all four of my parents, right? All the good stuff, maybe all the not good stuff. That's huge. That's why it's a commandment, right? The fifth one. And then, and then just obviously having, humility. I don't know everything, but I'm going to work hard and be confident what I do know and be open to learn what I don't know, and where my mind can be switched. And then, yeah, going back to that grace piece has been huge,
I
and
love
not choosing
grace.
resentment. Yeah,
Such a good word because when you give yourself grace, you you realize that we're all flawed. But like if you ever trying your best, then hey, tomorrow's a new day. Or if you shit the bed in that meeting, well, you can be better the next one.
exactly.
If there's things you didn't do right, well, let's own it. Let's check our ego, leave that ego check, but let's um and I love forgiveness. Forgiveness. So I read a great book in my late 30s on forgiveness by a guy named Richard Case, which I think has a spiritual following. Um, he said the theme is forgiveness takes me, reconciliation takes you and me.
Hmm.
And it's a powerful thing because, like, when we don't forgive, we hold on to that energy. That negative energy just negatively impacts us. But when we forgive, whether you want to or not, but if you forgive, like God forgave us, it's amazing what happens. You get that out of your system, and you open up. It doesn't mean you're gonna be best friends with that person, but at least you can get the negativity out and go back to being positive.
It's
Um,
a It's huge. I love that saying because it is spiritual, biblical, and I haven't brought her up yet, but I do disservice if I didn't. But my adopted mom, who is still alive, and her and I had challenges, especially really as soon as I hit puberty. I mean, she got thrust into this like raising a 6-year-old. I had just married my dad, and she was 10 years younger than him, so I think she was like 31, 32 when I came along, and was 3 months pregnant with her first biological child. I mean, there's a lot going on for her, and so we clashed at times growing up. I wasn't easy to deal with, and we had some big moments and some big fights, younger and adults, and in the last like few years, and we just kind of before my wedding, I think we both realized like we don't want that, like she's got to be there when all that, and just I just kept going on walks and just like praying and all that stuff, and I just like let go. I worked at forgiving her, and I also worked at like knowing where I screwed up. Right, not it's not all on her. That's been one of the most impactful things of my life and my faith was that. And I know not everyone. You're not going to get that reconciliation that you talked about. Like there's some people, but forgiveness is for you, uh, and forgiveness has been for me. And the weight that was lifted when I worked at it, was not easy. It wasn't a 5-second prayer. I worked at it to get there. I was like, please help me just let go of this, like anger and resentment, and process and give me the understanding. And that's one of the things that like really made me believe more, because it did shed over time, um, and quicker than I thought, to be honest. And then I was able to just proceed, and we've been building, the relationship back, and she's been out, and like it just it just works. It just works, and she's made the choice to do some of that and to work through that, which is great, right? I didn't know if that was going to happen or not, but we've been able to actually have some heart to hearts that we never had in 20 years, and that's. And I could talk about the ones that are the easy relationships that are easy, but I think it's important to share that as well. Um, we both made a choice, right? We're not technically blood related, but we both made a choice to realize all the experiences we had together and the life and everything, and just like, let's keep going. Like, let's just keep building and not worry about where we are with other people's relationships. Like, let's just work on ours. And that's been great.
That's great, man. I appreciate you sharing that. I think that'll be a powerful story when your boys are older, of just growth, because you're not going to be best friends with everybody, but you sure can be curious. You can be forgiving. You can have grace for people. And I think if you go through life with that, you'll be more empathetic. You'll be around people that bring joy to you, and you're going to be the person that usually brings joy to others. So I love that you shared that.
Well,
All right, before we get into the lightning round, which I go completely random, let's learn about the digital recruiter. Why would someone want to learn about you and the work you're doing, which I know many people do, and then talk about your podcast and why should they?
yeah. The digital recruiter is really cool, man. It's a blend of my recruiting background at Aerotech, my sales background in staffing and recruiting, learning LinkedIn automation, and having helped people book. We did the whole 10, 20 calls a month in LinkedIn 2020, 2021, when automation was really getting up and running on LinkedIn. I worked with a couple LinkedIn influencer accounts. I got to see their marketing, and I learned digital marketing myself. So I decided to kind of take a blend of content marketing, automation, and just kind of recruiting and sales know-how in the agency recruiting world, and started a digital recruiter. And I started teaching recruiters how to get more opportunities, how to really build their brand to generate more inbound leads. And I would say content led outbound, really open up that top of funnel, because a lot of recruiters just struggle to open up the doors with hiring managers, and just get conversations going, really understanding that business development process. It's evolved to helping some corporate recruiters as well. I help other coaches and consultants, as well, and kind of really open up their top of funnel on LinkedIn. So if we can systemize some of your outreach, what you do well, and create content around not just personal stuff, but your insights into your industry and your credibility and your wins, and really show why you're different than maybe some of your competitors, and get in front of your market every day, right? It's kind of systemized some of that top of funnel, so you have a lot more warm conversations. So it's been really fun to build. I eat my own dog food. I run my own system every day with automation, with content I post every day, and it's just been really cool. I've worked with hundreds of recruiters. I work with a lot of founders, typically smaller companies, in general, typically recruiting agency, but also work with smaller corporate departments, and as I mentioned, some people even outside the recruiting space. And that's what's cool, man. I think we just our blend of knowing the industry. I've posted, hundreds, maybe thousands of times by now, really studying copywriting, content marketing, to show how people can get their authentic story, tell the truth, and have that resonate with your prospects, your clients, your future clients, and just figure out how to be you, but in a business setting. So it draws your ecosystem, it draws your tribe.
Hmm.
And I love it, and it's super fun. It's kind of a blend of everything, and it's some of the most fulfilling work. So we do some boot camps, we do kind of like quick get up and running offers. I work with people on like 3 to 6 months. Some people I work with, on a year-to-year basis. So it's really cool, but it's really like, let's get the foundation of LinkedIn. Let's open up your conversations, your pipeline, and then from there we can fix things systematically.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to make sure this is linked in the show notes, everybody. Besides LinkedIn, are there other platforms that you're on where people can follow you?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube, X, X under my name, Clark Wilcox. YouTube, I think we have the Digital Recruiter channel. I'm on Facebook as well, but LinkedIn's kind of the primary one. I'm on X a little bit. I'm more of a reply guy and a like guy on X, and tweeting as much, but looking to do more on there and on YouTube. But LinkedIn's the big one. Oh, when you mentioned the Digital Recruiter podcast, that's right. I just interview people, sales coaches. You're going to be on, sales coaches, people, anyone related to kind of recruiting, agency owners, maybe some tech people that are related to recruiting. I just like getting people's stories like this. Like, what's your story, right? What have you seen work, especially kind of on the business development, sales side, like, it's just hard for people to understand how to be themselves but still win great business. And I think that's one of the most fun things to figure out, because when that light bulb goes on, it's great. So that's a lot of what we talk about on the Digital Recruiter podcast. Is it's just that piece, right? Having fun with business development.
Well, I can't wait to be when the tides turn and you're the
Yeah,
host and the guest. I got stories for days, bro. And
I
we
love it.
will,
Can't
a
wait.
lot of it are self deprecating, but they worked somehow, some way.
Can't wait.
Okay. It's now time to go in the lightning round. This is where
So
I show you the negative hits of taking too many hits in college, not football hits. I mean, not bong hits, but football hits.
yeah,
And your job is to answer them as quickly as you can. My job is to try to make you laugh.
that's fair.
Okay. True or false? You think Tom Brady is the worst quarterback ever?
False.
Okay. If you were to play hockey for the Bruins, tell me what position you'd play.
Probably goalie.
Goalie?
Yeah.
That might be the worst position ever. You're just taking pucks to the grill and the
Yeah, I
nards.
played lacrosse goalie growing up and soccer goalie and everything else. Yeah, I love scoring goals, but I can't, I'm not a good skater. So just throw me in net and I'll just stop everything somehow, some way.
Love
Yeah.
it. Love it. Tell me the last book you read.
Go dog go. I'm trying to think with my son. We read Dinosaurs Love Pajamas this morning. It's technically the last book I read this
Solid.
morning. On the sales side, I've been rereading oh the FBI negotiator one. I've been going
Never
through
split the
some.
difference.
Yeah, never split the difference. I've been going through chapters on that a little bit because a couple of my clients absolutely love that book. And so, as you could tell, it's top of mind. My brain is mush. But that's like my favorite business book that I've ever read.
All good.
Yeah.
If you were and your wife were going to go on vacation, sorry, boys, the kids are staying home. Where are you and your wife going?
She would probably want to go to Nashville or Florida.
Okay.
Probably one of those two.
There we go. Are you
Yeah.
guys country music people?
Yeah.
Check
Yeah.
out a guy named Adam Hood. If you remember, I met him at American Staffing Association, like this big event afterwards.
Yeah.
I ended up getting connected to him, and then I actually interviewed him. He was on the podcast this year.
Okay. Sweet. I'll check out that episode.
Singer,
Yeah.
songwriter. Shout out to you, Adam Hood. He did some work for like Little Big Town, Stapleton, and
Yeah.
he's freaking so good. I love. Yeah, he's really good. So, if I was to come to your house for dinner tonight, tell me what we'd have.
I'd probably go down to the butcher and get us some steaks, some fillets. Do that, maybe some potatoes, some green beans, and have a little red wine, and sit around and share stories with the family.
There we go. I like it.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'm getting hungry. If there was to be a book written about your life, tell me the title.
Wow, that's a good question. About my life. God, did people get stumped on this one, or is it just me?
Oh yeah, I can edit it out a little bit.
Yeah, this is great. A book on my life. What would be the title? Um, I don't know. Just keep going. It's like kind of what I keep thinking of. Just keep going. Like I think
Made
that
me
that might
think
be
of,
it. Yeah,
you made me think of Will Ferrell's the
just keep
old
on
school.
trucking.
Keep on
Keep
trucking.
keep on trucking. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay, we've came up with the book title together.
Yeah.
Okay, but now you're never going to believe this, Clark. It's already been the pre-sale. We just announced it like in the last few seconds, and it's sold out on Amazon. It's sold out on Barnes and Noble. Everybody wants this book. Keep on trucking. So now we're going to make a movie, and you are the casting director, but you can't star yourself. I need to know which Hollywood character will star you in this critically acclaimed hit movie.
The two lookalikes I've gotten are Adam Sandler and Jonah Hill are the ones that I get. I don't know personality wise. Sandler may like whatever the younger version of maybe a Sandler is. That's the one that I get a lot for whatever reason. But I don't know. Maybe him.
I love it.
Yeah.
Solid choice. Okay, and the last question: tell me two words that would describe your wife.
Just two.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd say beautiful and loyal.
Love it. Two solid answers. The lightning round's over. We both giggled. I think I laughed more at my own jokes, which means I get the loss. You get the win, Clark. But this has been awesome learning about you, man. Your story is unique. There's so much depth to it. I'm grateful that our paths have crossed. Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly.
And I'm sure this is not the last time we're going to be speaking. And I just encourage everybody, if this episode's touched you, if you've learned something, share the episode with a friend. Leave us a comment on one of our social channels. Copy, just figure out ways to kind of spread the word, because I, as the host, don't make money on this podcast. This is for pure joy, and I get free therapy out of every episode I do. But it's about serving others. It's about getting a message out. It's about creating better humans. And I get so much gratitude and grace and just in fulfillment for getting to do this. So I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful to all the other guests that have come on, over nearly almost 300, which is hard to believe.
Wow.
So with that said, everybody, thank you for listening. Go enjoy the rest of your day. And Clark, man, thanks so much for your time, brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Casey. Appreciate you.